Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So I mentioned in my last video that I don't have a set TBR for June. I definitely want to just mood read this month. I want to pick up books that sound good to me. I have a few books already going, so once those are done, I really don't have anything set in place of what I should be picking up, but I have an endless TBR and I definitely want to make a dent in more books that I own and that are on my shelves, which this little pile is here. So today's video, I thought that I would try a chapter. I've seen a few people do this already. I originally saw Emma doing this from Drinking by My Shelf, and I thought that it was a great idea to try some books. She was doing more of a try a chapter and then unhaul anything that doesn't sound good, and I am just more so on the hunt for a next good read and a read that sounds good to me, not something that I feel like I have to read. So I have 10 books here, all books that I own that I either bought or got from little free libraries, and I was gonna read the first chapter of every book to see which one sounds the most interesting to me and rank them in order of what is the most interesting and what I'm more likely to pick up. I have quite a mix of different kind of books here, different genres. So that's the plan. I'm just gonna lay on my bed and read a few chapters of some books and we'll see how it goes. I'll check in with you guys along the way. So first book on the pile is Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. This book is a literary fiction of sorts, I believe. It is about a girl and her family and they go to Antarctica, and that's kind of the gist of what I know. Let's read the first chapter. So this book is not really divided into chapters, it's divided into parts, but the first part is a long one. It's actually divided more up into letters and notes and emails. I read the first 15 pages and here's what I learned so far. Bernadette is the mom and LG is the dad, and they have a daughter called B, and she just finished middle school with straight A's, and they said that if you finish with straight A's you can have anything you want, and what she wants is a family vacation to Antarctica. So they are planning a family trip to Antarctica, and apparently the mother, Bernadette, has super high social anxiety and doesn't like to be around people and doesn't like leaving the house, and I'm assuming Where'd You Go, Bernadette means that the mom might run away or disappear or something like that. I don't think it's a thriller. I don't think anything like mysterious or scary is gonna happen, but yeah, I'm intrigued, not totally captivated by it. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I need to know what happens, but I think it's cleverly written and so far the pacing's pretty quick, so I feel like it might be really easy to get through this book. Next up, I have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This is a long series and this is a mystery thriller book about a detective. Let's read the first chapter. Alright, so I read the first 20 pages of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. There was a prologue and the first chapter is 32 pages, so I didn't quite finish the first chapter. The story is just being set up. The prologue talks about a famous detective and one unsolved case that he hasn't been able to figure out. And then the first chapter starts off by telling the story of a reporter who has been found guilty for libel. So he wrote a story accusing a very famous and rich person in Sweden that they were doing stuff illegally, and there's a bit of a conspiracy, and he was found guilty for making that up and not saying the truth. So he's figuring out if he needs to sell his apartment, and he's like kind of bummed because he's established in his journalistic career and he's like figuring out what the repercussions of this might be. I'm intrigued to see where this goes. This book is set in Sweden and there's already some references that I'm not totally understanding, but I'm sure that it will make sense as the book continues. And overall, I'm assuming that, you know, this journalist and then maybe a detective and some other person are going to come together and try to like bring this like rich mob guy down. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, I definitely still want to read this, but so far it's going one under Where'd You Go, Bernadette. This one actually sounds a little bit more appealing and summery and fun to read. This one sounds like it might be a bit intense. Next up, I have Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is also a book that I recently snagged in a little free library in perfect condition, and this is a science fiction post-apocalyptic kind of book set in the near future where some climate crisis kind of ends the world, and I think it follows a woman living in a small community in California trying to survive and grow crops and stuff like that. Let's read the first chapter and see how we feel. Alrighty, so read the first chapter. It was quite short. There's actually a introduction or a foreword by N.K. Jemisin, who's also a famous Black science fiction fantasy author. So what I learned is that this book setting starts in the year 2024, and it follows a young girl who's 8 years old living with her stepmother and her father in this sort of commune, and all that's been mentioned is that she really likes looking at the stars, and her stepmom says, oh well, there used to be like big cities and you used to not be able to see the stars. That's all I learned so far. I definitely feel like I would like to keep reading this one, and I think so far it goes on top of this pile. Next up I have The Husband's Secret by Liane Moriarty. I read Big Little Lies last summer and absolutely loved it, and so I want to give another Liane Moriarty book a try. So as you can see, my location has changed. I actually took a lunch break, and it's so nice today, it's so warm out, that I decided to read outside on my little balcony. The audio might be a little bit worse because of all the birds, but I'll do my best. Finished the first chapter of The Husband's Secret. So far it is very intriguing. It's very similarly written as Big Little Lies. The kind of banter, the way the characters are described. It is about this woman named Cecilia and her 3 daughters. One day she goes up in the attic in search for something, and she finds this letter that was written by her husband, and it says, "For my dear wife Cecilia, to be opened on the event of my death." And so far the first chapter, she has just discovered this letter and is going about her day, but keeps getting distracted thinking about this letter and whether or not she should open it and why he would have written it. But I'm actually very intrigued to keep reading this, so I think this one goes on the top of the stack so far. So next up on the list, book number 5 is Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. Recently read one of his nonfiction works, Eating Animals, and it was really well done and a really good book. I'm interested to pick up this work of fiction. This is one of my friend's favorite books, so we'll see. My cat is chasing a bird. Oh, look who's back. Lexi, do you have a good time outside? Oh, you're hot, huh? Let's go in. Let's go in and give you some water. Come on. Yeah. Okay, now that all those distractions are sorted, the cat is sorted. She is resting inside. Let's start the first chapter of Everything is Illuminated. This book, I think, is going to be about the author, Jonathan Safran Foer, traveling to Ukraine to find the town where his grandfather was born and to write a story about his grandfather's life. And this book is going to be about that story, potentially. So this first chapter is written from the perspective of the young teenage Ukrainian tour guide who guided and drove Jonathan Safran Foer around Ukraine, and he has this very interesting personality, kind of matter of fact, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm very curious of where this is gonna go. I would say it's probably here on a scale of what I want to pick up right away. I couldn't have a chapter without some historical fiction. I actually have a couple more historical fictions in here, but the first one has been on my shelf for a while. Orphan by Christina Baker Kline. It's a very popular historical fiction. I gave it to my friend recently to read and she really liked it, so I would love to read this book, know what it's about. I've only heard good things. This book starts out in 2011 with a girl named Molly who is living with her foster parents who don't really like her. She's kind of into the goth punk thing and she's never fit in, and she doesn't think anyone would like her, but she befriends this guy, and she's never really had much, but she really wants to read Jane Eyre, so she decides to steal the copy from the library and gets caught and has to do community service. And her foster parents are on the verge of kicking her out, but her friend Jack has found her some way to do her community service, and that is by cleaning this old lady's attic. I'm assuming this girl Molly is going to clean this lady's attic and is probably gonna unearth some stories or a book or some letters or something about other orphaned children. And I feel like it's gonna jump into the past and tell another story set in another time. Maybe here? Maybe this pile will change as I keep reading, I'm not sure. Moving on to the next one, Lord of the Flies by William Goulding. Found this one in a little free library. This is a classic book that I should have read in high school that I never did, and I figured I should pick it up. We'll find out if it's intriguing. I made it to page 12, and I already know that I don't want to read this as much as the other books, so I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the pile. I still kind of want to read this, but I'm also okay not reading it. So far, it follows this boy named Ralph, who is on an island, and then there's a boy who's described as being a fat boy that keeps following him around. They're on an island, and there was a plane crash, and there's apparently no grown-ups. So I feel like it's just gonna be a group of boys on an island trying to survive. Not totally craving this right now, and don't want to force myself to read it. Next up, Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I was gonna read this last month, but I didn't get a chance to get to it, so I want to pick it up soon. I've only heard good things about this book. So the first chapter was only a page, so I read chapter 1 and 2. It's setting up a lot. The narrator is recounting childhood events of him and his childhood friend and their dads and their families. The author also kind of recounts the social tensions that exist between the two sects of Islam, the Shia and the Sunni. So I'm interested to see where this story goes. He's setting up a lot of like something bad happened or something intense happened in 1975, and he now lives in San Francisco, and he's gonna go back and kind of like replay the story of what happened and the events that occurred. I'm definitely interested to read this one. I'll put it at number 4 for now. Next up, a popular one, The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. Previously read The Nightingale by her and absolutely loved it. It's been a while though, I'm due for a reread, but I want to read this one first. And I got this beautiful UK paperback edition. I'm interested to see how the first chapter grips me. I mean, this book is everything that I should love, so we'll see. So far, it's pretty good. It follows Elsa, who is a girl living in the 1920s of this rich family in Texas, or in Oklahoma, in the Great Plains. And she apparently had rheumatic fever when she was younger and has never recovered from it, or has recovered, but her family doesn't think so. She's 25, so she's considered a spinster because she's never married. Her parents and her family all think that she's ill and that she's just gonna like live alone at home forever. But she has these dreams of finding love and marrying and being beautiful, and she loves to read. Most recently, she just cut her hair into a bob and her mom freaked out. I'm interested to see where this story goes. I mean, I'm not surprised that I want to keep reading this one. I feel like maybe it's number 2. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll rearrange that. I have one book left called A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. I have been meaning to read a Fredrik Backman this year, and my friend read this one. She said she really liked it. Very wholesome book is what I've heard. So let's see how the first chapter goes. Of course, right before I end this video, the camera dies. But as I was saying, I finished the first chapter of this, which was very short, and so far it's about a grumpy old man that hates his life, and he walked into an Apple store to try to buy a computer without really understanding what a computer is, and the sales associates had a really tough time selling him anything and describing modern technology to him. So far I feel like this will be a quick read, an easy read, like I said, a wholesome read. I'll be honest, I still want to read all of these books, maybe except Lord of the Flies. Not really caring about that one. Four Winds, I definitely feel like I'll pick up first, then Husband's Secret, maybe Orphan Train, then Parable of the Sower. Maybe this is maybe a little bit more realistic of where that pile of possibility Lies. So all of these books are still good. Still want to make my way through them. I definitely like The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. It just feels like the kind of book that's up my alley and my kind of read. I really like The Husband's Secret by Liane Moriarty. I'm very interested to see where the story goes, what that letter that her husband left her says, and kind of how events unfold here. These three are all kind of in the same place for me in terms of my level of intrigue. And maybe I'd even include the Kite Run in there. I don't think that I will get to all of these books at all in June, but I know that I'll probably reach for some of them, especially now that my interest is piqued, now that I've read the first chapter in most of them. I'll end this video here, because it's hot and I need to go back inside in the AC and get some stuff done. But I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much for tuning in, for trying a chapter with me. And let me know if you've read any of these and you like any of them, and if I should prioritize some over the other. I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye!